Last time we talked about Caitlin Clark, the story was about survival. Her and Sophie Cunningham fighting through the hits, the no-calls, the politics that were threatening to push them right out of the WNBA. But here's the twist. Caitlin Clark might already be planning her next move, not just her next game, her next life. And the plan she's teasing? It's as big as anything she's done on the court. Caitlin Clark's career has been a sprint since the moment she put on an Iowa jersey. She didn't just win games, she rewrote the record books, the NCAA scoring crown, triple-doubles like they were routine. And when she hit the WNBA, the same story, only now the ripple effects were hitting everywhere. The Indiana Fever's road games became must-see events. Merch sales exploded. Viewership records shattered. Even casual sports fans knew her name, because whether you loved her or wanted to see her lose, you watched. And that's important, because it's the same gravitational pull that's making her next chapter so intriguing. We've seen athletes transition after retirement, sure, but rarely have we seen one start talking publicly about it this early, and with this kind of confidence. On Sue Bird's Bird's Eye View podcast, Caitlin Clark didn't play it safe. She wasn't just there to promote the next game or rattle off the usual PR sound bites. Instead, she opened a window into something most athletes keep locked away during their prime: what life might look like after the final buzzer. She didn't hesitate. Clark talked about potentially owning a sports franchise one day. Not coaching, not broadcasting, owning. That's a different level of ambition, one that instantly shifts how you see her. Ownership isn't about staying close to the game, it's about shaping it from the top down. And then, just as easily, she tossed out another idea: opening a restaurant. She laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that says this is just a joke. It was the kind of laugh you hear when someone's already been daydreaming about it. And here's where the connection to our last video is impossible to ignore. Remember how we broke down the relentless targeting Clark's been facing in the WNBA? The no calls, the physical fouls, the pressure on and off the court. That constant grind takes a toll. It also forces you to think ahead. If you can't rely on the system to protect you, maybe you start preparing for a future where you control the system. Sue Bird picked up on that energy too. She pressed her gently, asking whether Clark could see herself stepping away sooner than people expect. Clark didn't give a direct yes, but the smile she gave and the way she tilted her head spoke volumes. For fans who've followed her journey, this wasn't a random comment. It felt like a breadcrumb. And after the way her season has unfolded, those breadcrumbs suddenly feel like they might lead somewhere real. Then came David Letterman's Netflix show. Letterman, with that trademark sly grin, asked about her future. Clark said something that made sports business insiders' ears perk up. She wanted to be in a suite. Not the luxury kind, the executive kind. That's when athletes moving into ownership isn't new. But the timing here is, LeBron James was deep into his NBA career before making serious moves. Tom Brady waited until he was done winning Super Bowls. Caitlin Clark is in year 2 of her pro career, already planting the seeds. And that's why it's buzzing online. The idea that she could make this kind of leap, especially if her WNBA career gets cut short, the way we discussed in the Clark and Cunningham story, gives fans and critics plenty to argue about. Would stepping away early hurt her basketball legacy or amplify it? Would owning a team make her untouchable in the sport's history or turn her into just another business figure? The reactions online were immediate. X, Instagram, and other social media platforms all erupted the moment her podcast and Letterman clips went public. One viral post even mocked up an ESPN graphic reading, "Clark named youngest GM in pro basketball history." It racked up millions of views in days. Sports talk shows debated whether she could realistically balance running a team with other ventures. Business analysts compared her potential path to LeBron James, Serena Williams, and Tom Brady. And fans couldn't help tying it back to our last story, seeing this not as a distant dream, but as a potential escape route if the WNBA treatment we discussed before pushes her away sooner than anyone expects. Here's where it connects directly to what we've already seen from her career so far. In our last story, we talked about how Clark and Cunningham have been battling through not just physical play, but a lack of institutional support. Now think about the power dynamic shift if Clark ever moved into ownership or a GM role. Instead of being on the receiving end of poor officiating, she could be in a position to influence league policy. Instead of needing public support from the front office, she is the front office. That's the kind of leap that changes not just her life, but the entire conversation around women in sports leadership. And culturally, it's massive. We're talking about a young woman stepping into a lane still dominated by men in a sport that desperately needs more diverse leadership. That alone makes this more than a sports story. It's a cultural moment in the making. Caitlin Clark isn't just building a career, she's building a blueprint. From Iowa's record-shattering arenas to the WNBA's primetime slots to now teasing life as a team owner or executive, she's quietly mapping out the next decade of her life. And after everything we covered in the last video, the battles, the fouls, the pressure, it's not hard to imagine why she'd want to be the one calling the shots someday. So, here's your question. If Caitlin Clark did step away tomorrow and became an owner or GM, would that be the ultimate power move, or would it leave too much unfinished business on the court? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't seen the full breakdown of her and Sophie Cunningham's fight to stay in the WNBA, watch that next, because that's where this story really begins.